How does a writer write a truthful, powerful novel or story? I'm going to kind of like follow up on the last video I made, which was excellent advice to writers on how to find your voice. And now I'm going to fine tune that and how to make your voice powerful and truthful. Um, what I'd like to say on this is most of us have a religion in our life. Like I am like an evangelical Christian, and I'm a Bible college graduate, and I was from a fundamentalist Baptist background, but I've kind of evolved now into a non-denominational evangelical type. But I am a Bible believing Christian, so that's my religion. Your religion might be Judaism. You could be Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, or maybe you're a Muslim. They have a religion too. Or maybe you're Catholic. Catholics are not evangelicals, even though some of them say they are. The Roman Catholic have their Catholic faith has its own culture and subdivisions within the Catholic faith that are different from other subdivisions because it's a huge church. Like the evangelicals have their own subdivisions. So the first thing you need to be aware of if you want to write a truthful, powerful story is you cannot allow your religion, whatever it is, to stop you from being transparent about areas where you're scared, where you have doubts, where you have fears. And you can't allow your religion, whatever it is, to prevent you from exploring those areas in your characters. When I first wrote Silver Skies, I did a lot of research on gun control and gun rights and the Second Amendment and all that. And I concluded that that the Second Amendment advocates had some valid points. So I wanted to bring that into my Silver Skies. But what I was really obsessed with, because this was in the 1990s, I felt like our country was going in the direction of possible concentration camps. And I think there was some truth to that. In fact, I think that's the direction our country's still going in. It's just going at a slower pace than I thought back in the 1990s. But even though I felt that way, I did decide to have a new age character who felt the opposite of what I felt. And I wanted to bring his perspective in there in order to give my novel breadth of viewpoint to be able to reach more readers. And I also wanted to explore New Age beliefs to give myself another vista to explore, to enrich my novel. And I did. I did a lot of research on the New Age movement. I went to New Age bookstores, even though I was told by my church, I was going to a very strict church at the time, King James Bible only, that doing such things is going in Satan's territory, and you shouldn't even be thinking along that line. And this is what I'm talking about. When you're a writer, you've got to give your mind the freedom to explore all other religions with an open mind and to explore your own religion with an open mind. And this may mean you may have to explore areas that make you very uncomfortable. Now, let me tell you something. The reason I botched my rewrites for Silver Skies is because I lost that feeling of discovery that I had. You see, when I first wrote Silver Skies, my goal was I actually wrote it to help me find myself. Brent Spiner had come into my life, and there were a lot of things about my Christian faith that I questioned. Like I felt like it was a little overly rigid in some areas, and I felt like I was in a box and I was constricted. So I actually wrote Silver Skies to explore the areas where I felt constricted and to let my main character was constricted. He was kind of mirroring some of my the constriction in my own life. And I was exploring that with an open heart. And that's why the book is so powerful, because I was honest about the questions I had in my faith. Even though I decided to make him a rabbi because I wanted to honor Brent Spiner, who was Jewish. And even though Brent's not, he was more raised like an agnostic Jew, more of a secular Jew. Nevertheless, he was raised in a Jewish household. So I wanted to understand my lover a little better and get insights into him, and I wanted to honor him. So I decided to, and I also decided to create a rabbi for a main character because I loved Colleen McCullough's The Thorn Birds, and she had a sexy Roman Catholic priest in her book, and I wanted to have a sexy rabbi, like my equivalent of her Thorn Birds, I actually ended up creating a book with my own voice. And in some ways, it's like the Thorn Birds, but in other ways, it's totally me, and which is good because I cannot be Colleen McCullough. I don't have her life experiences. I don't have her background. She was raised Catholic, apparently. And so that's not, that's not my story or something that I could write about with truthfully. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is, when you create your characters, it's okay to base a character on something you're passionate about. So let's say you believe in gun rights, and like I did at the time, it's okay to create a character who believes in gun rights, but make sure that that character can be true to who he is. You've created him and you've put in aspects of maybe of your own personality into the character, which most writers have to do to create a believable character. They have to build on their own experiences like an actor does when he's getting into character for his role. But you got to remember to let that character be truthful to who he is. And you cannot allow your religion to cause you to close off areas that that character cares about, and for you not to explore his doubts, which could very well be your doubts, just because you're scared that if you do so, they're going to ban your book as pornography or whatever, Let me read you a scene where Colleen McCullough may have been a Catholic, but she wasn't scared to explore her doubts as a Catholic. He wrapped his arms, this is the love scene from The Thorn Birds, one of the most powerful passages in the whole book. He wrapped his arms about her. This is Ralph finally making love to his forbidden love as a priest to Meggie, and looked down with eyes full of tears at the still faintly lit face, watched its rosebud mouth drop open, gasp, become a helpless O of astonished pleasure. This is a masterpiece scene. Her arms and legs were round him, living ropes which bound him to her, silkily, sleekily tormented him. Oh, is that powerful? You say, why is this powerful? Because the whole theme of the book is here. Forbidden, he's denying himself true love. He's sacrificing true love on the altar for something inferior, his ambition to be the perfect priest. Something he cannot do. Why does he want to be the perfect priest? Because he cannot accept who he is as he can't accept his weaknesses. He can't accept the fact that he's scared to be vulnerable to a woman. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons he decided to become a priest. Now here he is vulnerable. This is why this is powerful. Living ropes bound him to her, silkily, sleekly tormented him. He put his chin into her shoulder and his cheek against the softness of hers, gave himself over. He's surrendering to the side that he denies. Gave himself over to the maddening, exasperating drive of a man grappling with fate. Oh, I hate Lori's bombs. She's making me cough. Oh, she's terrible. She needs to stop dropping those bombs. His mind reeled, slipped, became utterly dark and blindingly bright. She's using symbolism here to describe a man who's taking off the masks, taking off the veneer and being who he really is, a man with passions, with vulnerabilities. For one moment, he was within the sun. Okay, he's trying to be real. He's trying to be authentic. He's within the sun. Then the brilliance faded, but already, as he's making love to Maggie, already the masks are coming back on. He's lying to himself about who he is. He's telling himself he can be the perfect priest. Nobody can be the perfect priest. The readers know that. Grew gray and went out. This was being a man. This was being vulnerable. This was, but this is so powerful. You might say, oh, that's a really hot love scene. It is a hot love scene because the whole power of the novel is being concentrated in this scene. It's not just the love scene. It's he could be no more. He's vulnerable here, but that was not the source of the pain. Oh, the pain. You cannot write powerfully unless you put your characters in pain. Because when we're in pain, that's when some of the greatest truths of life come to the fore. The stuff that we're lying to ourselves about. The stuff that we're lying to everybody else about. The pain was in the final moment. The finite moment. He can't be the perfect priest. The empty, desolate realization. Ecstasy is fleeting. He was grasping at true love. He was enjoying it, but now he's going to let it go. This is a powerful scene. He couldn't bear to let her go. Not now that he had her. He had made her for himself. He fostered a relationship with Maggie because this was the one human being he could be truly himself with, who he could expose his vulnerabilities, his dark side, the part that he wouldn't even admit he had to himself. So he clung to her like a drowning man to a spar in a lonely sea. Oh, this is beautiful imagery. The metaphor, and soon, buoyant, riding again on a tide grown quickly familiar, he succumbed to the inscrutable fate which is a man's. Okay, he made love to Maggie, not just with his body, but with his soul. He was open with her, truthful with her. He actually gave her a part of the real him. This was the only woman in his life that he was ever, or only human being in his life, that he was ever totally honest with in this moment. This was a moment of total truthfulness, total transparency, and that's what makes this love scene so powerful. And then you look at the ending of the book, the bird with the thorn in its breast. It follows an immutable law. It is driven by it knows not what to impale itself and die singing. That's the theme of the whole book, is sacrificing true love for something inferior. Maggie does it. All the main characters in this book do that. And they all are like examples of it. She works out the plot with each character where they all end up sacrificing something inferior for true love. Maggie's mother did it. Maggie did it. Justine, her daughter, almost did it. And the book ends when Justine quits being a sacrifice. She marries the man she loves. She was about to be a sacrifice. So this book just kind of comes full circle. The point is, Colleen McCullough may have been a Catholic, but she was a bit of a rebel Catholic, which is what made her such a stinking good writer. She wasn't scared to explore the parts of her religion that she questioned, that she had doubts about. And that's what makes this book so powerful. In fact, I believe that I don't think any devout Catholic can read that book with dry eyes. Because they can relate to Ralph and Maggie. And I'm not just talking about Catholics, I'm talking about anybody from any faith where you felt like you've had to pull back because your religion says That if you think a certain way or you do certain things, it's like, oh, you're a black sheep, you're a devil, you're Satan. Anybody who's felt like that in their life, who felt like they've been constricted wrongly, that will make you think. That's why that was a mega bestseller, because there are a lot of people that feel like they're trapped. They're trapped in a loveless marriage, or they're trapped in a religion that in some areas doesn't resonate with them. You see, when I wrote Silver Skies, I wanted to write something as powerful as the Thorn Birds was to me when I read it. I really admired Colleen McCullough. And so I created these characters who all felt like they were missing something in their life, kind of like Maggie and Ralph. And in a way, maybe they were kind of sacrificing needlessly for something that they shouldn't be sacrificing over. And this is where you got to be careful as a writer when you allow your religious faith to become part of the plot. You want to make sure that you are truthful in the way you portray how your religion affects you. Okay? For instance, and this is, you got to be real careful with this. I have a scene in my dark moment in my work in progress that I had to change drastically from what I originally intended. In my original version, I was going to have my characters get married with, apple blossoms under a canopy and all this. And I was going to have it seem like heaven on earth, because that's, simply because I love that kind of a scene. The problem with that is it's really boring. It's a boring thing because it's kind of Mary Sue and boring, because until you get to the very end of the book where all the pieces are coming together and everything's coming to full circle, you do not want to have any scenes in your novel where everything is Mary Sue and perfect. First of all, life isn't like that. And your purpose, if you're going to have like a gung-ho love scene or a marriage take place in your novel, and it's not at the very end, but it's like in the 2/3 of the way through the book, you're going to have some pain in there to make it a powerful scene. Yeah. And I realized, I would realize that at this point in my character's life, he really wants to go to bed with this woman. I mean, he's consumed with it. He's been denying this for about half of his life. He's finally made up his mind. He's going to be true to himself. And I was saying, that's not going to work for my plot. My book can't end here because if he consummates his love with his lover, then my book's over, the romance story's over. And I thought, wait a minute, Gail, think about the Thorn Birds. Ralph consummated his love for Maggie and the Thorn Birds, and the book wasn't over, and you were still turning the pages to see what would happen next. The reason why is because the consummation was emotionally painful for him. It forced him to. It opened up new vistas in his heart and helped him to understand life and himself better. And what he was understanding was painful. And it just occurred to me, I said, Gail, why does this character want to make love to her so much? And why are you trying to delay it? He's been delaying it through the whole book. And normally with a love story, you want to do that. But I woke up one morning, and like I told you in the last video, sometimes your character, you got to go with your gut sometimes. I woke up one morning, I said, Gail, this character really wants to go to bed with this woman. And everything's, all the energy's going in this direction. And if you don't have him do it, it's going to be it's like a build up to, it's like everything you've built up to now is just not going to work. So I said, you know what? I'm going to have a full-fledged sex scene in there. That's what I decided to do. Now, let me tell you something. I was planning on having a sex scene in my novel anyway, because I wanted to write like Colleen McCullough. But I have to be honest with you. as a Christian writer, I've got a lot of hang-ups, or I did, especially in the 1990s, especially going to the really strict church I went to. I had a lot of hang-ups about this. You can't do this. It's not true to Jesus. Jesus is going to frown on you if you have a sex scene in there that's as explicit as the ones Colleen McCullough writes. And then I thought, yeah, well, Gail, when you read the Thorn Birds, do you feel like you've read pornography? And I thought, no. I said, yeah, the book's powerful because Colleen McCullough had the courage to put the sex scenes that needed to be in there. The reason why is because the sex scenes really show you who these characters are and what the conflict of the whole book is about. Just look at what I read you. That's probably one of the most powerful scenes in the whole book. There are some other scenes that are pretty powerful. Well, that's one of them. So what you need to do is ask yourself, if there's a scene in there that you're scared to write, that's probably one that means you need to write it. You need to write it. So if you're scared to write a sex scene, you need to write it and make it work in your plot. All I can say is you want to write powerful, but when you write it, you need to dare to let that character be true to who he really is. Let him explore all the doubts, all the awe, everything that you secretly relish in your heart, but you wouldn't dare share with people at your church. That's what needs to be in there. Now, during the rewrite process, you can go back and fine-tune it, but don't fine-tune it to the point where it becomes a lie. It needs to be truthful to who you and that character are. Now, you actually put yourself into that character. Now, that's where I really messed up. I would write a love scene between my two characters, and then I would think, oh, this is so awesome. They're together. Everybody's going to be so excited. They're going to want me to, to mention every little emotion that's in his heart. And I thought, wait a minute. Stop, Gail, stop. First of all, every little emotion that's in his heart, that you think is in his heart, is not really true, Gail. First of all, look at the point of the story. It's dangerous for him to make love to her. Isn't he a little scared to do this? Why isn't that in there? Why aren't you exploring his fears? Why is he scared? All you're talking about is how awesome it is for him to have love with her. The thrilling orgasm, the thrill of having his arms going down. You know how that's going to come across to the average reader? Because just about everyone out there has had sex or they've made love. And most of the times, let's face it, sometimes we get an orgasm, sometimes we don't, and sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's not, depending on who your partner is. I will say this, if you're writing a love story, your love scenes need to be hot, okay? But they're not going to be hot if you Mary Sue them. People know. You say, well, so what makes an exciting love scene? Or a powerful scene? Brutal honesty, just like that Thorn Birds. Don't forget to include the pain. Don't forget to include the doubts. And when you explore the pain, don't weaken it. Think, oh, well, I can justify having a sex scene if I make it just so out of this world that everybody's wowed by. Yeah, everybody's going to be thinking, oh, wow, no love scenes like this. This is crazy. Even no characters is perfect. So what you need to do, if you want the love scene to be powerful, first of all, don't go in there with thinking, oh, I got to write the most powerful love scene in all of literary history. No. You do that, I mean, it'll be Mary Sue for sure. What you need to do, you go into that scene just like you do any other scene that you write in your book. You explore your character's goal for that scene, including making love, if that's what he's doing. What does he want out of this sexual experience? That needs to be explored. What does he want? And why is he not getting it? Remember, you're not at the end of the book yet. Okay? If you've got a love scene in the middle of your book, and you're writing a romance, especially, He's making love, but he's missing something. Unless you're at the end of the book, you should be missing something. Especially if you're writing a romance or a buddy love story. Okay? If the love scene's in the middle, he's missing something. You need to explore what he's missing while he's making love. That's what Colleen McCullough did. Yes, she did portray with sensitivity what he was experiencing as he was making love to Meggie, and that was very touching. I almost cried when I read that. But he's missing something as he's making love. He's realizing that this is temporary, that he's going to have to abandon her. It's painful. And he doesn't have the courage to be true to himself as a man. He's saying he's the perfect priest. He never was the perfect priest, never will be the perfect priest. But at this point in his life, he's lying to himself and telling himself he's the perfect priest. And the price that he's paying is he's sacrificing the love of a lifetime. So here he is experiencing what he could have if he had the courage to be true to himself, which makes the scene oh so powerful. The sacrifice seems so huge in this scene. He's got the love of a lifetime with a woman who would practically die for him, and he's going to sacrifice it. And she's going into it. She's saying he feels like a spar on a lonely sea. What makes the scene so powerful, it's not just the body moves, it's not just the orgasm, which they both obviously have. It's the fact that they're both going to lose it. They got a diamond in their reach, and then it was like wrested from them. And Colleen McCullough uses the words to show you the pain. The scene is powerful. It resonates with people because all of us, if we're honest, at some point in our life, we have sacrificed something that was awesome, that was beautiful, because we were scared, because we wanted to fit in, because we didn't have the courage to be true to ourselves or true to our lover. You see, that's why this book was a mega bestseller. And that's what you need to remember when you write your scene, that you, in your guts as a writer, know could be one of the most powerful scenes in your novel. Maybe it's a love scene. Maybe it's a scene where he's finally facing up to his demons. When you get to that scene, you're going to be scared as a writer, because you're going to be exploring your own demons. And you're going to have the courage to bear all your doubts, all your imperfections, all the questions on the page, truthfully exploring exactly how you feel, not how you think you should feel, how you really feel. And that's how you write a powerful scene. The ending to this book is pretty good. Leon Uris's Exodus. Throughout the whole book, Kitty is denying the growing love that she has for the main character, Ari Ben Canaan, because he's like a Superman. He's been trained his whole life to be this Superman, not allowed to have normal human emotions because that could make him weak and not able to accomplish his objective of making Israel a nation for the Jewish people. And finally, towards the end of the book, his father has a talk with Ari and says, you need to make yourself vulnerable to that woman that you love, Kitty, the Gentile woman who became part of the Jewish community. And he said, I would have crawled on my hands and knees to my wife many, many times. And he says, I've failed as your father because you won't allow yourself to be vulnerable to the woman that you love. And you're sacrificing your heart to try to be a powerful Jewish leader. And he said, I've failed you as a father. That's powerful. He had this, you know what? Sometimes we do that. We sacrifice. Our religion tells us, no. You might say, like, for instance, I'm going to tread into dangerous ground here with some of my friends, but let's say you're a Christian and you don't have a problem with homosexual relationships, okay? But you know that if you explore that honestly in your book, you're going to get banned. I mean, if that's how you feel, write it. Write it. Be truthful, be honest. If they want to ban you, I'll just say, that's how I feel. I'm sorry. I'm not saying I'm right. It's how I feel. And this is where you got to be careful as a Christian author or a very devoutly religious person. When you're writing your book, you need to be truthful to who you are. Who you are. You are not part of the collective, okay? And that's the problem with us writers. We think, well, here in America, if I dare to explore that, I'm going to be, ah! You might say, well, what if what I'm exploring is hateful, or they did that in Wuthering Heights with Heathcliff, but it was a literary masterpiece. Okay, if you feel hatred or anger towards somebody, explore it. Be honest about it. Maybe make a character based on that. But you need to be honest. Why are you angry? Explore that. Maybe you were raised to feel that you had to be somebody you couldn't be, and you're angry because the world's trying to put you in a box. The point is, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're afraid, if your character's scared of something, if they're angry about something, if they're frustrated about something, you need to write about it. You need to explore it honestly. Maybe you say, but I don't know the answer. How can I write about something? It's okay. A writer's job is to, especially a fiction writer's job is to raise questions, not to give the answers. That's what they call show, don't tell. Like, for instance, in my Silver Skies, I'm going to go ahead and mention this, and I don't think it'll ruin the book for you. I started off the book as somebody who was really pro Second Amendment. And I'm not going to change any of that, because I had some of my characters bring in some really good arguments pro Second Amendment in the book. And it works beautifully in the plot. And I do feel that one of the ways the Antichrist is going to take over the world is going to take weapons away from the people. So I'm going to leave that in there. However, there's another side of me that wonders if the people that are, against gun rights might have a point too. Because we're at a point in our society, but I'm not going to say whether I'm for or. The point is, anything where you have doubts, you need to present all sides of you, not just the sides that you think will be acceptable to whatever group you belong to. Okay? So I said, how am I going to solve this enigma? In order for this story to be powerful, it needs to be truthful to who I am as a writer and who these characters are as they're evolving. They're evolving and changing. Like, Dorr starts off very pro Second Amendment, but he starts having some doubts as he starts dealing with the Antichrist. It's not that he's against pro Second Amendment, but he's discovering that other issues may be more important than gun rights. In dealing with this Antichrist who's got brain control, able to make clones, it's like, do guns help with something like with somebody who's got power to do these things? And I've got a powerful scene towards the end of the book where one of my very main point of view characters dies because of a gunshot. So it's like, and I'm not going to preach about it at all. I'm just going to show the scene and let the readers draw their own conclusions. That's how you write powerful. You say, how do you feel about gun rights? I'm kind of in the middle right now. I'm neutral. I'm more for gun rights than against them, but I'm not going to totally write off everybody who's for gun rights. And I myself do not own a gun. Guns scare me. I'm scared to have a gun. But I don't have a problem. There are some men on my marriage list that love their guns. I say, fine. That's them. The point is, your characters are going to grow and evolve, and they should. And when that happens, you need to portray that believingly. I started writing this book in the 1990s. I've grown and evolved since then. And I said, Gail, why don't you put some of that growth and evolution into your characters? It'll make the book deeper. It'll make it more truthful. So that's what I'm doing. They're still true to who they were or are, but they've grown. So the thing is, the reason the book was so powerful when I wrote it in the 1990s, even though I don't even agree with some of the views I had back then, I've kind of changed, is because when I did write about their views on guns or other things, I made them totally honest. Like one of my main character was crusading for guns, and he was saying, "I don't really feel like doing this today. I wish I didn't have to do this. I want to do something else. I want to think about Brianna and just think about making love. And I don't even want to think about guns today." It's like, that's how I honestly felt. You see, yes, I was thinking that, yes, it's not good when a country loses their gun rights. But on the other hand, I didn't want to make that the story. It was a love story. And that was how I honestly felt. And it works because the character was three-dimensional. He was showing that the typical conflicts that, let's just face it, we're not always consistent. Some of the things we do are inconsistent. You need to reflect that in your characters. Sometimes what they say and what they do don't always match up. Explore it. Explore the inconsistencies. The point is, when you're going in to write a scene, just pretend like your religion doesn't exist. You pretend like it's you in this scene and nobody's watching you, nobody's there to judge you, and you get to be or do what you really want to do and really want to think. That's how you need to write the scene, and that makes powerful writing. And don't ever forget, the most powerful writing explores the pain that the character is feeling to the very depths. You explore it in all of its ramifications, why it hurts. Explore it deeply. Explore it truthfully. Explore the things that bug you, that make you want to stay up at night. Explore them. And then when you get towards the end of the book where everything's wrapping up, then explore what it is you were able to do to make yourself and your character feel better. Or if you're writing a tragedy, what it is that made you feel absolutely devastated. The point is, when you explore, don't leave anything out that affected you to the point that you were bothered by it. If it bothers you, you need to write about it. And if you find yourself holding back because you're all of a sudden worried about what your mama's going to say or what your church is going to say, that is exactly what you need to explore and write about. I guarantee you, when Colleen McCullough was writing the Thorn Birds, she wasn't thinking about what her priest was going to think about what she wrote. If she did, it would have been a flop. Leon Uris, when he wrote Exodus, they say this is Jewish propaganda, but not all of his Jewish characters were perfect. I mean, some of them were, he didn't have perfect people in there. And you got to be careful. When you start thinking you got to make your characters seem perfect in any area, now that's when they start becoming flat. Okay? I don't know if I got my point across or not. But if it scares you, if it makes you maybe lose some sleep at night, you need to write about it. It's, like I said, I woke up one morning and I said, Gail, I know that it's going to ruin, you think it's going to ruin your plot for your characters to have sex here, but he's so consumed with this. If he doesn't have sex in this scene, the rest of the book will not be believable. He said he's got to go to bed with this character. So I decided to make it a sex scene. And I think it's going to be one of the most powerful scenes in the whole book. Yeah. Because I wrote about everything that I was scared to death to write about. That's how you need to write, writers. If it doesn't scare you to death somewhere, to write about it, It's the character and the plot. They're going to be flat. You need to be scared to death. Write about what you're scared to death to write about. If it doesn't scare you, it's not truthful. And it's not worth writing about.